get back to business here. We're 4 minutes late again. Okay, EMA Commission Chair and Vice Chair, 18-19 budget.
Okay, so Dean is still traveling. He was on vacation last week, so he had some, traveling difficulties with the weather. And we fully expected the director to be here too, but like I mentioned, that travel conditions have made it impossible for her to get here. I'm not sure where she's at. If I had to guess, if I had to, speculate, she's, I think she travels to Mason City on the weekends and stays with her husband. So I'm assuming that that's where she's at, but she didn't state that in her email this morning. So the budget, yeah, interesting because it just came to our attention within the last couple of weeks that the budget request for the EMA Commission was not fully funded last year. So it's surprising because it's an area where the director prides herself on that type, budget management and things like that. Well, here we are 8 months into the new budget year, and it's just coming to light now. So I was unaware of it, and the other commission members were unaware of it, and I'm not exactly sure what brought the attention to the director, but she realized it within the last several weeks, the last month, that it wasn't fully funded. I think the request was $433,000, and the board at that time funded like $99,000. So there's a difference of about $40,699 from what the request was to what was funded by the previous board. So the director was, and the commission wanted myself and then Dean, who was vice chairman at that time for the 18 calendar year, and still to represent the commission here today and talk about that. So that's where we're at. I've talked to Peggy about the budget and what we have, what is in that fund today. According to your calculations, it will pay the director's salary, FICA, IFRS, through the remainder of this budget year, so June 30th. So that, from a personal standpoint, her salary is not in question here, but it would be the additional expenses that she would incur, moving forward to the end of the budget season. So,
do we have a request for this year yet?
We did, has it been submitted?
For next year.
Or, yeah,
For
for this next year.
1920, yeah, we did submit a budget for that.
Right.
And,
Approximately 119,
is that what it is?
I believe. If I remember right, I'd have to look
And,
back.
along with the grants that we hopefully will receive and things like that. So I think she had that factored in there to where the budget would be 150,000,
151 or 2, I thought it was when
something like that. So, and that's all contingent on receiving those grants. But to my knowledge, we've never been denied before, so I wouldn't anticipate being, denied our grants, which makes up part of her salary. A lot of these questions she could fully answer better than I, as far, because I think the board is, well aware of the challenges that we've been facing with the director and then the communication and accountability issues. So it's still an ongoing challenge. I think the full commission and Dave, you jump in, Dave, if you want, but I think we're doing a better job of educating them now as to what, that maybe the day-to-day operations, maybe people are being more aware of what exactly is going on, which is always a good thing. We did establish an executive committee at our last commission meeting. The chairman, myself, vice chairman Dave, and then Sheriff Kruger was another member of the executive committee, along with Mayor Lowell Johnson from Gilmore City. So the four of us were instructed to meet with the director on a monthly basis, if need be. I mean, we're not after having meetings just to have meetings. I mean,
Right.
if there's something to report or something to discuss, you know, that was what the commission direction was for the establishment of this executive committee. And so that's what we are charged with. And then along with that, at the meeting last week, which was held Wednesday, February 20th, we implemented a guideline policy handbook that spells out specific duties for that position, for reporting and those types of situations. It was an initial draft, which I probably need some modification. You know, and the commission realized that, but at the same time, we're 2 months into her probationary period, and we hadn't gotten to the point where we had laid down specific guidelines and you know, policy handbook for her reporting. So we passed that the other night, and she had some objections to some of the
Criteria.
portions of that guideline handbook. And so that was something that the executive committee, we do have a meeting scheduled tentatively for this Thursday at 6 o'clock at the EOC. So it'll be Dave and myself and Lowell and Dean, and then Melody asked to attend too, which is fine, but I did explain to her that, you know, she's not a commission member, she doesn't vote, so we would take her input under consideration, but typically you don't have employees writing their own handbook and saying...
So when you put this policy book, you used someone else's template for them?
We did, in a sense.
Or that
we did,
gentleman
yes,
that you
we
sent
did.
that information to?
The bylaws, we certainly were looking at something similar to what Scott Hansen
that's who it
from
was.
Benton County, and he actually is not only the emergency management director for Benton County, he's also the president of the Iowa...
He's the one that spoke down in Des Moines.
He's the one, he's president of the Iowa EMA Commission, which Melody is the statewide secretary for that commission. I was in he came up after our December 11th meeting and volunteered to help us with, you know, anything that we needed direction on and stuff. So I took him up on that, and he emailed me their bylaws. And to your point too, it looked like that this was just a template, and then, you know, what I went through there, and I'm sure Dave did too, and some other commission members, but so rather than having Benton County, we would just substitute and put Humboldt County in it. Theirs was laid out in layman's terms and in a format that was easy understandable. I mean, you didn't need a lawyer an attorney to decipher what the bylaws meant. So, I mean, I thought it was a very simple format, and one that I think that we could easily adopt. I do believe so, and that's something that the executive committee will be looking at. I do think, and Peggy, maybe you can help me out with that, anytime we have a bylaws change or something, we need to send out 30-day notice prior to any changes with our bylaws, I believe. So if the executive committee would adopt bylaws, we have to send out a 30-day notice, maybe publication to, you know, the news agencies and things like that of the you know.
It's whatever your rules say, because it tends to vary from document to document as to how long.
So that's where we're at. with all that. I feel like I feel like the commission is making progress. Obviously, there's a lot of changes that the director has to get used to, because it's been kind of an unsupervised position before. So this is new for everyone, and stuff, so.
Dan, I have
Go
a
ahead,
question.
Eric.
Weren't there bylaws / handbook in place previous?
Not- I don't think we had a specific guideline or handbook in place, Eric. We, obviously bylaws, and like I said, I think they were the template was the same that everyone uses statewide, you know, with certain modifications and substituting, you know, their county for the, you know, in the template. So no, so to your answer, or to your question, I don't believe there were specific guidelines in place for that position. Other than it being, and that's an arguable point, was that it's a county employee. So to Bruce's question about the guidelines that we have implemented, it was a collaboration with, you know, certain individuals, and then we used the Humboldt County Employee Handbook to guide us too. So it's a mixture of different you know, aspects for the guidelines and things like that, so.
I was curious. I mean, I know there's an EMA handbook, or it spells out the whole commission and the duties of the director.
Yes, it
That's
does.
been there for years.
Iowa Code Chapter 29C is what that handbook is.
Mhm.
So that's where I think the conflict comes, you know. Is the director's position solely under the supervision of the Iowa Code, or is it the county, you know? So that's where, you know, I think the debate or argument comes from and stuff, so, yeah, but, and I was gonna talk to Ben. He was here, Ben Lutz, is that who your secondary roads
Yeah.
supervisor is?
Engineer.
Engineer? Yeah, I was gonna talk to him this morning, because I did notice, it was brought to my attention that Clay County, Cassuth County, Wright County, they all issued, I think, declarations of emergency for the severe winter storm. So I was trying, you know, I wish the director had been here, then we could have asked her, you know, what her steps were. Has she been in contact with anybody, you know, in the event that we needed to make that declaration. I certainly...
The one I received said, by the authority of the Cassuth County Public Safety, the entire county has been shut down, no travel advised, and travel ban is in effect for the county and cities in Cassuth.
Yeah, and then
When was that issued, Bruce?
Yesterday.
Yeah, and Wright County also. So
I heard that.
you heard that, Kent, right?
Yeah, I heard Wright County, I guess I hadn't heard Cassuth.
Yeah.
But it really makes it a difficult situation when you've got your emergency manager isn't here for the weekend, and Dean is also out of state or not,
That's
so.
a very good point,
And
and
the chief deputy just got hired,
Just
so
got
he's,
hired,
you know,
and-
trying to learn, so.
and, you know, I'm kinda learning on the fly here, you guys, so for me to make that declaration, I didn't feel comfortable, and then I didn't know, you know, what the process was, you know, and then if we went ahead and, you know, if we went ahead and did that, you know, what are the benefits of that? I mean, there was some question, and that's why I was gonna ask Ben if maybe he knew, you know, some of the, you know, the benefits of declaring that, you know, is it, you know, because I know dispatch, I talked to dispatch, to the individual that was working days yesterday, so that individual told me, the shift they were on from 7 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon had no contact from the director. You know, pretty much in the height of the storm. And so, we had, individuals that were stranded around the county, and, so I didn't know if by declaring that, would we be allowed, some state funds or something to supplement our funds?
No, no.
We won't have a clue, 'cause we're not kept in the loop, because we're not her boss.
There you have it. It's to speak to what your discussion
Yeah,
is
go
here.
right ahead.
I had a couple public commentary question, kind of what you're just talking about, just to know, I won't mention the public's name, but, they're really questioning, well, what does if we have an emergency management director, department, kind of with this whole discussion, the question was brought up, there's no, issuance of any, emergency anything, and I just, there again, like Rick said, we don't, I don't know if you do, we have no jurisdiction over that, but it was a fair question, I think, given the fact how ugly the conditions were.
I totally agree, so does that allow us to tap into reserve some funds?
I don't know.
State
I don't know.
funds that would have paid for housing for people that were stranded and got rescued and brought into the community? Would it have paid for, some additional fuel? That's what I was gonna ask Ben, if Ben knew that, if we could pay for overtime or fuel or something like that for, emergency conditions and stuff. So
Other than, that's a good question, other than the fact too, just pure public safety. When do you issue obviously, I don't know if that dawns on people, but, people should have been more aware if they weren't. They should never have been out yesterday. And, I don't know.
Post that,
Yeah.
which was good.
Mhm.
Ben have something on Facebook?
Yeah,
something
Ben
about-
posted on Facebook, and it was on the Bold,
Okay.
Facebook page too, about the road crews were taken off and wouldn't be on till 5 this morning, and that they were only running emergencies. Somebody was stranded and things like that.
And there were numerous news reports out, on
Yes,
television and
they-
radio about, interstates being closed, state highways being closed, impassable, so,
This all led to the reason why we asked her to come on a monthly basis, so that we could be
So we'd
at
know.
least in somewhat loop of what's going on, and because of the fact that the time that they asked Dean, why Humboldt County had been declared, and
Correct.
Dean didn't know, so it all made us kinda look stupid.
that was a...
So that was our question,
Yeah.
if you would just give us a monthly update, we're good.
That was a flooding issue that what can happen this summer, and WHO would happen to be in the area, and then they
So,
stopped in the LAC.
Exactly.
And then, they asked the sheriff about it, and he, completely caught him flat-footed or blindsided him, he didn't even know that we had been declared and stuff, and then, and that was at a situation where the director was at a meeting out of town, so, at least she was conscious of what was going on, but instead of informing us, we weren't informed, so, it just so, and quite honestly, guys, since, the sheriff and I have been monitoring this on a close basis here for the last 8 to 10 months, I'm not convinced that this position is full-time, is warranted full-time. I'm probably, if they thought I was the person to advocate for funding, I'm not convinced, and if Peggy assures us that she has enough salary for the remainder of the year and can make some expenses, then,
So you're not here lobbying for a budget
I'm-
amendment to get more money for the balance of this fiscal year?
The commission wanted to, I'm here as their representative, but in my opinion, I think I see other counties that are operating with a part-time position, and so I wonder if that's not something that needs to be looked at. I don't know, because, and, I think the previous board had the requirements or the job description, in place beforehand where you felt comfortable? I think the previous board wanted to do the right thing and get a qualified person, so then you had 32 hours recognized as EMA, and then you wanted that individual to do the zoning for another 8 hours a week. So in order to attract a quality person, so that you could have a nice salary plus benefits. So then you know, I'm not sure what happened with, you know, the zoning and things like that, but, you know, the director came to the commission, and then she persuasively lobbied, you know, to kind of jettison her duties and responsibilities as a zoning administrator, and convinced the board that EMA should be a full-time position, and that warranted, you know, all the vacation days and different things like, and the benefits.
And then our zoning would be overtime, so we couldn't afford that.
Yeah, so then you guys were on your own after that, especially after, you know, especially after the commission is her, you know, her board that she answers to, and it's kind of in a sense, a separate governing board from what you guys are, from what the Board of Supervisors is, so you guys have heard that before, so. That was, you know, and it's hard for, you all, good Lord, we just had meetings with Linda Fowles, and we'll use Linda for an example, or whatever, or the 911 board, we met with the 911 board. These boards, they meet twice a year. How in the world can you, as a board member, stay up on what is happening with that particular board when you only meet twice a year, once to set the budget and the second time to approve it? So, I mean, I think, and that's very similar to the way the commission has been. You know, we've only met twice. I've only been since I've been the mayor, I've only been on the commission board for that number of years. So we were meeting twice a year, so how in the world can we possibly stay up on all the issues when you're only meeting twice a year?
And in our defense, unless you're sitting in that chair, you aren't even in that
Right.
meeting,
Yeah, right.
because you're only once every 5 years, do you
Right.
walk around to
Yep.
that, listen to that, and so,
So she persuasively argued at that meeting, probably, and we could look at our records and.
what was when Carl, 'cause
Carl was a board
Yeah, 'cause
supervisor.
for some reason, I got booted off and Carl got put on.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Even though were you chairman at the time?
Yes, I was.
Huh, that's funny, because we'd have to look at our book and see who the I think it says, specifically says chairman of the board of supervisors, so, so I think she persuasively argued, and I don't mean any disrespect to the commission members in any sense, but an ill-informed commission, you know, because there's a certain level of trust there with that employee. If they come to you and you know, they say, you know, I'm busy, I need to, you know, dedicate more time to this, and I need, you know, to be recognized full-time in order to receive benefits. So that's how that all came about.
well, last year, remember when we had our discussion, we were talking about the funding, and I said, I think that's a conflict of interest for me to be the chairman of the Board of Supervisors, and then also be
Correct.
on that, and we possibly would be not funding, so, but then I'm lobbying to get the budget, and I just said, and that's when you were voted, and Dean was the vice chair, for the simple fact that anytime there's a disaster or something that happens, the sheriff is probably gonna be the person, so why not have him,
Automatically.
you know, and what, that was our thinking, so.
I totally agree. No,
I've asked her to bring up her budget and explain it to us, and haven't seen nothing of her. As far as yesterday, I talked to Ben Lutz yesterday, morning. He said it was snowing, blowing in as fast as they could. I called LEC and told them that we pulled the plows in case of an emergency, the deputies had to go someplace to notify them we'll get somebody in a plow and lead them to where they need to go for
Yeah.
the emergency. And I think I got a text back a couple times, they went out to Bradgate once and some.
Unique Corner.
Once,
Mhm.
but, that's the only time they was supposed to run was till the wind went down, quit blowing. And they went out 5 o'clock this morning, as far as I know.
Well, I think this is great discussion. Obviously, the only thing we have jurisdiction over is budget. I think we have, obviously get the gist of this, like, and Rick mentioned that, I just mentioned the budget, because as a board of supervisors, we don't have direct say-so over the EMA, other than all the things that have been brought up, and still the big question is, I think yesterday, as far as emergency conditions, is the biggest thing we've had close to emergency conditions in the past several years. I mean, as far as life-threatening, way worse than the flooding that got blindsided Dean that we were declared a disaster area. I mean, this wasn't a disaster area, this is Iowa, that we can get blizzards, and we did get one. And we've got nobody here that I would feel is tasked with emergencies and concerns. To, you know, Dave said what he did, you know, we were all in the loop, that Ben said we're gonna pull the plows because of that, but no declaration issued. I don't know about the money, I don't think any of us does, but I think just the simple safety fact, you know, if there was an emergency, I mean, it's still miserable driving on 169 this morning. Granted, the visibility is good, but the conditions are awful. And yesterday was life-threatening, pure and simple, and we had nothing. So, speaks volumes, I believe.
Yeah, so I'm hopeful with the establishment of this executive committee and then, you know, and then the implementation of that policy handbook, will, you know, now we've got the pieces in place to where, she knows the director knows what the boundaries are, and, will be held accountable moving forward. Yeah, so the commission felt, at least at our meeting last Wednesday, that, you know, you know, with her being on probation, that was adequate disciplinary action at this time.
Well,
So,
I guess all I can
yeah,
say,
Yeah.
hopefully, you know, when you described, Dan, you know, the commission is the commission, that they take into account the lack of, physically being here this past weekend under extremely adverse conditions.
But not being, and I can check with dispatch again, but I think that aspect, maybe physically not being here, but, you know, maybe not being in contact with, you know, letting know.
Everybody's got one of these.
I know it.
And Bruce-
I agree.
Bruce mentioned another big key word is communication. I think that's what we're
That's-
talking about.
Mhm.
Very discouraging.
I think the whole thing is we've tried to make the monthly meeting so that we are at least in the loop to know what's going on, to hopefully that's the way the commission's gonna work, that's the way that we can all, no one wants to run by and check, babysit, whatever you wanna say, but by the same token, if someone comes looking for that person, then you ought to be able to say, well, it's supposed to be in their office according to what we knew. That's all we're after. I think that we're all after.
I agree.
So when's our probation period? When is
Well,
that?
if it was implemented the night of that December
December.
11th meeting, so then 6 months, Sandy, and then,
Okay,
you know, and stuff,
okay. So what was the things that she was put on? Because I wasn't on the board at that time, so what are
Right.
the things that?
What was she, I think we outlined it as just communication and accountability.
Is anybody meeting with her monthly to say, hey, communication is better, isn't better? I mean,
Well-
was there something put in place to
See, that-
follow the steps?
It was implemented this last, but prior to that, we haven't had an opportunity to, because we wanted to establish the executive committee
Mhm.
and get that in place, and then we have the guidelines.
Try to get the guidelines in place so that you have the ability to step
Do something.
and
Yeah.
make sure that all the steps are being taken.
Yeah,
Right.
well, and then I made a presentation at Wednesday's meeting, in regard to, the Freedom of Information Act. Am I correct, Kent? Is that what you were?
Yeah, I don't know if, John Beatty, or maybe didn't share with you guys, but I had sent off, and I can email it to the board, but I had sent off a letter, well, I'd actually asked her, well, like, three different occasions to get these minutes of the December 11th meeting, because I wasn't aware that her position was gonna be talked about, otherwise I certainly would have been there. But, and then to get the information, nothing had come, so finally, I think it was on, whatever that Thursday was that the,
February 7th, maybe?
Was it the 7th?
Is that when you drafted that letter?
I think it was, yeah.
You drafted that letter to John?
Yeah, I get a letter to John and CC Dan and Melody, and just basically said that, hey, you're aware that, as a public body, the meeting minutes, need to be made available, to, anyone asking, including the press, and cited the little thing in the 21.5, open meetings and open records law, about it. And John said he would get on it. I just basically, I kinda gave her an arbitrary deadline. I just said, hey, Monday the 11th will be 2 months from the time of the meeting date. There's no reason the meeting that it shouldn't be available at this time. And anyway, I had to wait till that Friday, the 15th is when I finally got her email with the minutes. And that's
From a
when you guys
December
got it
11th
too.
meeting on minutes, so
But-
then the meeting on Wednesday, I made a copy of the article that Kent had written on it, and just, the frustration that he'd been dealing with and not being informed and not receiving this information on a timely manner. And then I also presented his letter that he drafted to John, to the commission members, and then, T.P. Anderson, they just did a general audit for the county. You guys are probably aware of that, so I asked their office just to, to go over, the EM department, and they just did, and help me out, I mean, they just do a random check. I mean, it's not, a detailed audit or anything like that, so the random audit, I mean, the receipts were all covered off. There were no irregularities or anything like that found. However, they did comment that submitting time cards, vacation time, sick leave, no one was signing off on those documents, so, there you have, we're back to the honor system, and that's.
Who monitors all that?
Yeah, and so whether the chairman does, the vice chairman does, or, she brings it up to Peggy's office to have that documented here, so that was one aspect, that we talked about too, about her reporting communications again, and then I must have been mistaken, maybe, and Dave, maybe we were mistaken, but I could have sworn, well, we talked to her about driving her personal vehicle and and claiming mileage for it, and especially, we've already provided the director with a company vehicle and stuff, so then she said that she didn't claim any mileage, so, I think John asked Peggy, and then I asked Peggy to do a little more specific search of that, to verify that claim. Peggy did find a couple of mileage documents, but the director says that she informed Dave and I of that, so I don't really remember it that way, but that's what she claims. And
We told her that
we were no longer gonna be paying.
legal counsel told us that if a vehicle is furnished to her, she is supposed to drive it and not her own. If she's driving her own, she must claim mileage because she's on county business. If she gets in an accident on county business in her own vehicle, the county is probably liable. And the lawyer that I talked to down at ISAC said that she has to drive a vehicle provided to her from the county if is available. And we told her that. And the last 2 Monday mornings, she showed up with her personal.
Mhm. So, I presented that information to the commission too, and,
That probably needs to be in writing, even though you've been told that there's a, but you still probably, like you said, need to have all that in writing, that way you can go back.
That's a
and
letter
say,
we're
look,
gonna get
this
to
is what you
John
have. Documentation is
Yeah.
always the,
and T.P.
the
Anderson.
key to everything.
yeah, to show that we've taken the
Mhm.
necessary steps.
Right.
You know,
You should
and that might be, your background is in private business. I mean, if
Mhm.
you read through the code of Iowa, this is an appointed position, and it says, that the director serves at the pleasure of the commission, so, I mean, so we don't really need to establish, I don't think, a disciplinary trail,
Oh, okay.
to take action, Sandy,
Okay.
you know, I mean, we could, so,
So is the commission in full behind the
agreement of others?
the
No.
executive board?
The executive board, yes,
Okay.
yes. Of taking any other further action at this time, I was trying to, kind of gauge the temperature of the room the other night, and I didn't feel like,
Well, I just wanna make sure that the executive board has got the backing of
They do.
the commission, so that you guys don't feel like you're on some hunt.
no, I don't think so, Bruce. I think the
They
commission.
appointed the guys to go on.
Well, that's good.
They
I'm glad.
fully support this executive committee.
Awesome.
I would say so, Bruce. Yep, they fully support it, and they obviously support the guidelines and handbooks in place, because they passed,
Well,
made
that's,
made a motion and second and passed that the other night too.
and I would
so-
think that being Scott helped you put it together, she has respect for him, right?
Well, if Scott is being held to these standards by Benton County, why can't we hold our director to the same standards?
That's my point.
That's exactly
We
what I
aren't
thought.
putting anybody at any higher scrutiny than
No.
someone else would be
She's not
expected.
being held to any higher
Awesome.
standard than anybody else.
Then I don't
And then the president
seen
of
this
the
before.
EMA Commission for the state of Iowa.
Then I would think that the board would give you guys our blessing and say,
Yeah.
that's my feelings anyway. Know that we're not,
Mm-hmm.
we're just asking to have some type of information given to us, so we can all be on the same page.
I agree.
I agree.
We
Yeah.
appreciate you coming.
Well,
Yes.
that's fine.
Yep.
Because other than David, I don't get a chance to talk to the rest of you all that often, and stuff to bring you up to speed about what's going on with that, so, yeah. I don't know if there's really anything else.
So by looking at our agendized item, was there a request to change the budget?
I am a representative of the commission, and so I shouldn't voice, I can voice my personal opinion, but I am here for the commission, so, yeah, so if, and the commission, I think maybe they were looking for an explanation, and maybe, I think they were looking for an explanation, and, and a request to fully fund the budget, yeah. I mean, I can't sit here and,
To fully fund last year's
Yeah,
request?
the current budget that
Current
we're in.
Because there's 40,000 difference, right?
Correct,
Well,
40,000.
where wasn't there some money that was in a fund somewhere? Didn't I
Well,
hear?
we talked about that a little bit, and, because, and it would be very similar to the assessor's office, 911, office, the LEC, if those are funded by the county,
Right.
obviously, but if that money's left over at the end of the year, it just carries over into, to the next fiscal year. So there has been some carryover, in the EMA budget since Melody's been in office. So there is some cash there, but it's, I think $46,000 or something like that is her current balance, of which you said 30-some thousand dollars was in cash, and that's all that she is legally authorized to spend is up to the cash value of that. So explain to me, help me out, Dave.
Okay.
So how, if we have a $46,000 balance, why can't she spend that in only restricted to the 30,000? That's something that I don't understand.
That's one thing that's very confusing in county government, because you have a budget and you have a cash balance in your fund. Melody's fund is set up such that nobody else has access to her fund. It's not like general basic where you have several departments coming in and using the money that's in there. EMA is just one fund, and that money stays there from year to year to year to year, which I know Melody has commented before, well, I have a reserve there, or I have some money set back. Yeah, it stays there in that fund. It's not anywhere else. It's not set up in a special fund or anything. It just stays there. Well, when you have a budget that's not fully funded, like this year was, she's using up cash balance as she's going. There is no other money coming in that I'm aware of. She's gotten her grant money in. She's gotten her, whatever other money she was supposed to have. So, looking at that, you can say, okay, on your budget sheet, it shows you have $46,000 left. When you look at your monthly budget sheets, it tells you how much money you have left and how much percent you've used so far. But, when you look at your cash, there's only $30,000, a little over $30,000 in there. So you can't spend 46, because you've only got 30 in your pot of money. Unless somebody puts more money into that pot.
You have only your cash reserves of what you have.
Yes. And once that is spent, there is no reserve anymore. I know she was hoping that there was still money there for future disasters and things like that. But that's it. That's what is in that fund, and once that's used up, it's gone. You would have to replenish that somehow. So when I looked at the budget for Dan, I figured out you can pay all the salary for the rest of the year, and it'd give her roughly $4,000 for everything else. So from now until end of June, it'd be very, very tight through there. I mean, she's got utilities, she's got phone bills, she's got various things in there.
Well, I should wait for Bruce to get back, but
Yeah, but, yeah.
I think I will, 'cause I'm
that's
gonna just
fine.
wait for him to come back before I make this comment.
Okay.
But,
And I know that's confusing to everybody as where, you know, the
So where
county
does
and
that
the way
other
it's
money
set
go
up.
to? If you say
Good,
it
if you're
shows
waiting, I'll
that,
make
there's
this real
only
short.
Alright.
I'll make it real short.
Where does that other money, I guess I understand the cash balance, you can only spend your cash, but why does it show 46 or whatever
That's
it
what
is?
she budgeted, assuming that she was gonna get
Oh,
all the
I
money she was
understand what
supposed
you're
to
saying
get.
now. Okay, so that's what she budgeted, but she actually only has the cash balance. Okay, now it's clear.
Yeah.
Which is
Okay.
Yep.
kind of what made it confusing, because when
Right.
she was talking to the board about it, it made it sound like, oh, I've got this much money, well, then she
Yeah.
come back and says, well, no, I don't, we're this much short.
She
Right.
did. I mean,
Right.
I think there was some confusion amongst the commission members that they thought that she had her budget plus this
Yeah.
additional
Right.
cash.
And in the
back.
meantime,
That's what
she'd
I
come up and
understand.
visited
That's-
with me, and I had explained
That's not
that.
the
I
case,
understand.
so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And it says that we shall finance her budget.
Did you find that in there, David? I was looking for that this
No.
morning.
uh,
But anyway,
found it in this book, but it says that we shall. It does not say how much we would fund. It says we shall fund her budget, but it doesn't say. And then in this book, or one of these books, on the emergency manager, it says that if the county does not fund it, she has to go to one of the entities or the other entities around the county to get the money from them.
well, Ken, you can help me out on this. She was, when we talked about that the other night, she was proposing for each community to enact their own levy to support the...
Yeah, she's making it sound like, hey, if you guys don't pony up the bucks, then she's asking all these mayors to, hey, you've gotta go to your city council
Yeah.
and enforce a levy in the middle of the year, or whatever, you'd have
Well,
to,
just-
they'd have to amend their budget.
Just what we did with the 2080 agreement 2 years ago when, for Dean, when we had to raise, when we tried to get,
Oh, but that wasn't 50 cents.
that just, that just scared the daylights out of some of those smaller towns that, you know, they didn't have that in their budget. How,
No.
there's no way they could do that.
Brad Gayton, Gilmore City said there's no way that they could finance any more additional money from out of their budget, and then she was proposing that they enact a levy to support
You
the
can't,
money.
you have to vote a levy through.
Yeah, so
You
she-
can't.
And she should have known last year that we cut her budget.
That's what's so.
Well, we
surprising.
didn't, we did not cut the budget. This is what I was waiting for Bruce to get back. Last year, she sent us a budget. I can't remember exact numbers, but we raised her budget 4%, I believe.
I think that's how it was.
3 or 4% from the previous year. So we did not cut the budget. We did not probably give her as much as she wanted,
Not her request.
not at her request. And Bruce and I went down and spoke with her about that. And then, probably partially through that year is when she went to full-time, which screwed up her budget.
Because she's getting paid more.
She took a larger salary out of it.
Salary out of that, those numbers.
You're talking about last
Year, 2018, 19.
18, 19.
In the meantime, she went full-time instead of 32 hours, so she increased her budget there by the wages.
I mean, I could be wrong on the dates, but I don't know, but I know Bruce and I went down, told her we were gonna increase her budget, but only at what we did for all the departments. We kept it equal. Whatever the other departments went up, that's what her
Yeah.
budget went up.
So
So,
we do that for next year too?
what's that?
Didn't we do the same thing for next year?
No,
Or we got it,
next year's, and that's a full amount unless you decide not to.
So that's where the
Yeah. the
number come in
differences,
last
yeah.
year.
So, yes,
Which,
so.
yeah.
So when's gonna be made a decision whether she's 40 hours or 32 or 30? Does
We-
the county have to go by the 30-hour rule, that if you work 30 hours, you get medical benefits and things like that?
That's a federal rule, yeah.
Right, so the county has to follow that. So if she gets 30 hours, she's entitled to, she doesn't have to get the vacation, but she has to get the medical, correct?
Right.
She was hired for 32 hours when she took the job.
Okay, which would be medical benefits. But is there gonna be, when's the decision gonna be made about her hours then, or is there even a thought about that?
That's a good, I think we'll probably discuss it with the executive committee, you know, and stuff, but it's hard to get 15, commission members all on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
It really is, so,
Oh, yeah.
and like I said, and through no fault of their own, but, there hasn't been much involvement in this, governing this position, so now we're having to educate them as to what's been going on and what, so yeah, so I don't mind sharing, it's been documented in the paper about, about my position on this, on the director. So, but I am representing the commission, so that's what I was tasked with for today. I was gonna come and ask you if you would, consider that.
The other thing, Dan, the other thing we have is, we have a real unique situation with Laverne and Gilmore City.
Yep, they're split.
Because both of those towns are split right down the middle.
Yep.
For
So
county
they get half Cassuth and half Pocahontas.
Yep.
So, when you talk to,
Kevin
McPeak up in
Yeah.
Laverne, he says, well, I have to make sure that I ask for Cassuth County on the one side, and Pocahontas is with Lowell on the other side, and it's like, you never even think of that, but, the Main
Yeah.
Street is the dividing line in Gilmore, and I'm not, one of them streets in Laverne is the same.
Yeah.
So they have part emergency management or whatever, or it's roads department or whatever it is, they get divided in the middle of their town, so.
Yep.
Actually, pretty much in Laverne, it's right at the south edge
Edge.
there, so
It is.
if they had a tornado and it was Main Street, main part of town there, that'd be on Cassuth County,
Bingo.
because that's where it is.
right?
I mean, we could assist, I'm sure, and whatever, and we would, but
Yeah, so-
You got something? I got something.
Go ahead, go ahead.
As far as this budget increase,
Yeah.
it's not out of money today.
It's not our money today.
Well,
And projections are that we can make it through, the end of this calendar, of this fiscal year, June 30th, with covering her salary as it's in FICA and papers and things like, what Peggy did say, you know, at least approximately $5,000
Right? And,
from March 1st through June 30th for all of the expenses moving forward then.
well, this is just,
This is her.
my opinion, and Peggy sent this out for your, you know, this is something I've known about. I wouldn't fund, this is me, my personal opinion, anything today.
Yeah. Well, this
I would
is
just-
last year's.
Let this go. I mean, I don't like kicking the can down the road, but I don't think I would amend anything and add any more money today.
Where's the rest of the bill?
But
That's my
we-
question.
We know, per
The question.
you representing the commission,
100,000.
and Peggy actually knew this quite a while ago, where the money was, and that really hasn't changed. I wouldn't vote to add anything into that budget today.
I just asked Rick, I said, I'm looking at, this is 2017-18, project, or the money, her salary, but yet her request, I'd like to know where the other half of that money goes. I think that's what the board would like to know, what that half of that money, where that request goes. What we spend it on, and I don't think that's really out of the,
No, that's the point along what I'm saying. I wouldn't, if you take a vote, I wouldn't vote to
Over 50.
add any money.
She's got, what, 40,000 in grants, wasn't that what it was?
Is
She
that
got
is that like a
40,000 in
motion, or
grants.
to leave the budget where it is?
Well, if you want a motion, I'll make that.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Now we can discuss.
Basically, Rick just said it. The motion is to leave the budget as is today.
Mhm. And then if she needs more later on, I mean, if something happens
If we-
where
if
there's
we have
a
a disaster,
then we can
And
view
if
it
you
at that
want-
time.
because we don't need to be spending money running to Des Moines all the time.
That, and Bruce's point,
Well, I'm just-
where is the money going? And I don't know if that's your, even as a chairman and the board, complete responsibility, it's part of their responsibility to tell us and the public where it's going. I don't think that's an unreasonable request.
I don't,
That's the only thing we have control of is the money. We
Yeah.
can't control anything else.
No, but I think it's a fair question when you have the money to ask where it's being spent.
Yes, I would agree. Everybody else has to be accountable for their budget and the money.
So,
well, when Ben comes in asking for the 300,000, we bought 3 dump trucks, we know what,
we bought 3 dump
we got
trucks.
3 dump trucks.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm
Dave
just a little,
Dave just told us about Region 5 hazmat, an ungodly expensive truck.
Yeah.
But there's, and he explained it succinctly,
Yeah.
per being on that board, we know, and the county's in that region fund that, but, you know, there's no doubt what that money's being spent for. And we understand it. This is too ambiguous.
Mhm.
Bruce's point, that's why I say, there's my discussion, not increasing the budget today.
Any other discussion on it? All in favor of denying it?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We'll fund her last year's budget.
Okay, thanks. I'll pass the information along and,
She'll have to cut her wages or cut her hours or something.
yeah, she might be back and maybe...
we might be here.
We still...
I'd remind you.
Yeah,
No,
I'm
but I-
highly dedicated,
But,
Too important distance to get
she might be
everything.
back to try to present
Just
all
such a discussion.
arguments in favor of the funding, so,
Okay.
It's
We would request that she comes up and explains the budget to us, we'd like to know where some of the money goes.
mhm,
I mean, if you got a third of its wages and $150,000 budget, where's the other $100,000 go?
mhm.
Perfect. Thanks for your...
Thanks for your-
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
You can come anytime.
And I know...
You can't talk as long, but you can come anytime.
You guys are in a rock and hard place, I know.
But we commend you and the commission and the members and the executive committee for doing what they're doing.
Right.
I think you're doing it as needed
Paid the big bucks.
and warranted. That's why you're a community servant, but you're serving the community, and I think you're serving the county by what you're
Well,
doing.
it's such an important piece of the puzzle that, you know, for the entire county, and, you know, if we don't have the right person in place, you know,
Well, we
That's
just
the
don't wanna
key
get
implement
caught
right there.
It is.
in a position where something happens that we
Yeah,
shoulda, coulda, and that's, I guess, what we're asking,
yeah.
so, perfect.
Okay, thank you, Dad.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Okay. You wanna put me down for that one for Fort Dodge,
Sure will.
April 16th?
Yep.
I will be down
Dave, could I see that a second? 'Cause I didn't print this off, but I looked at it.
Hey, I would let you know,
Is that the zoning one?
I got a email back from our meeting down in Des Moines, remember down at the embassy,
Yeah.
where we visited with him about that hemp?
Mhm.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
He emailed me Thursday or Friday and said that they are drafting some legislation to try and get that into Iowa's economy, is the way I mean, long story short. So they are trying to push it forward to see if we can change the laws on that, so maybe our visit with him wasn't...
I read that. Yeah.
I would, well, caution anyone that's gonna jump in to hemp.
No, I
dive into-
know.
To educate themselves, don't dive headfirst into it. Like you said, Bruce, they need to get some things squared away. There's a lot more to it, I think, than most people
Well,
realize.
that's what he said,
And they really-
they're at least trying to move forward and trying to get some legislation so that they have the ability to see what
Yep.
it would do for Iowa.
Yep, and I think it's in that stage right now. It's, probably not the correct time for farmers in Iowa to think they're gonna run out and plant half of their acres to, any type of hemp. It's just, it isn't. So, but that's good. There'll be an ongoing thing to look at.
Anything else come before the board?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Oh, this is...
Adjourned.